I'm Anouk Janton. I'm French. I live in Geneva in Switzerland, and tonight I play violin.
My name is Lionel Marchetti. I am from France, and I play synthesizer and diverse electronics.
The first concrete project I did was a youth big band in Trondheim who did the Sun Ra project. That was the first time I played I think I had been interested in some of the Miles Davis 70s stuff before that, and kind of played along with some things at home, but that youth big band playing Sun Ra tunes was the first. And then being told, they taught everyone the bass line, the melody, maybe the chords, and then they said you can play some of that or you can play something else, it's up to you. That was the first time it's kind of mind-blowing the first time to and I think a very unfocused answer now, but this thing of being able to choose whether you play or not was what attracted me the most. To be able to say okay, now I don't play actually, or to have that control versus having a paper in front of you telling you when you play and when you don't play. So that was the initial attraction.
I started when I was younger with musique concrète during a long time, and I was not interested at all at the beginning to improvise. For me it was horrible. But I was very involved in the recorded sounds and the use of the speakers and the possibility to sculpt the space with the speakers, and slowly I discovered it was interesting in more to work with the sound in space in sort of live situations. So I started to share my musical practice in both parts, composition with recorded sounds I do every day, and on stage a sort of totally improvised music.
I studied in musicology and specifically in ethnomusicology, and I work on a trial music in Niger, in Africa. And I guess I was very interested in the same time about the traditional music and also about the sound of the 20th century. And I was and I had a classical training with the violin before, and I was moving into different spaces, and it took time for me to find somewhere if I tried different way of playing, and also with Arabic music. But yeah, it took time to find a place, and finally it arrived when I saw a concert of improvised music, and I said that's a place for me. Because the question of the sound finally, which is a way to mix two different approach or way of listening, and also the question of listening. And finally I was involved in that scene by listening this music and by the way to understand that it was close to my way of doing finally. A kind of we worked a lot to find a right place for the speakers and for the acoustic violin, and it was more about to find a feeling of having 3 different sources with my acoustic sound, your 2 points with the bass frequencies and the high and the mid frequencies. And we didn't do it tonight, but at the first part it was more about the line with the subwoofer. I'm sitting on the subwoofer, so it's also a question to get the vibration of the sound in my body. Because with the violin, it's I have 2 bones here, I don't know the name in English, and here. And it's a question of vibration to get the sound with the vibration of the body. And this was something interesting for us. And so we were we began to work with this question. So we arrived to the point that I will sit on the subwoofer, and it was more a question of the same points with the same. All the sources come from the same line for the audience, and it's more a question of about working on the kind of trouble that finally you don't know which is the sound from Lionel or from mine, and. We improvise, but it's not. For my point, it's more about a kind of direction that we work on, that free improvised music, for example. And at some point, it can record my song, but it's more like an option or a kind of matter that you can use or not than the one you described before.
I think it's just about experience. Like for me, it feels more naked. If I would play a written piece, it would feel more naked than improvising. Mm-hmm. Because I feel I have much more skill in. Also, for me, it's the same as with you. Like my solo is not really improvised. It's just like moments here and there, which are improvised, but. Like I have a clear agenda for what I want it to be, at least, and then there's variations. But for me, like having to play someone else's music is a bigger challenge than doing my own stuff, just because I've focused more on using improvisation as a tool. But like I remember like being asked to improvise the first time. And like getting this, which is not a very good, like from a pedagogical point of view, like telling someone to just play anything when they've never improvised before is terrifying. You know, like you can choose anything, and then you're totally like a deer in the headlights. So, of course, then it's totally different. If you never improvised before, then that's the most scary thing in the world, probably. And then, yeah, anyway. So then I felt like graphical scores, for example, maybe connects those 2 worlds, and like, or just like giving someone a picture of an apple and telling them to play the apple is much easier than asking them to play whatever they want when they start. Yeah.
When I improvise, I have the feeling I discover what I am discovering while I am discovering it. It's a strange walking. It's an encounter with something which I don't know which will happen. And there is a particular way of breathing. I try to more or less to follow, and very often I am very surprised, and I am a sort of a public of myself, and I am the public of the situations. Of course, I am working with my instruments. And we organize the situation, but the most important fact it's I don't know what is going to happen, more or less. And so it's very far away from composition for me. It's another comment dire, notre métier, another job. Because I cannot come back on what I made. I just have to do it. So I follow a sort of a river. I follow a sort of aquatic feeling, and I will see. So, comment on dit la confiance?
The truthness.
The what?
The truth.
The truth.
To be confident. Yeah.
Yes. So I have to be confident with Anouk in this duet. I have to be confident with the sounds, but it doesn't always work, of course. It can be very dangerous, and I like this danger.
That's the risk.
There is a risk.
Yeah.
There is a risk, which is very specific to improvisation on stage.
I like this river metaphor, though. I think that's a bit the same as I mentioned with the choice to play or not play, which in most music you don't have that choice because you have a role to play. But like this image of, I've thought about that before, like sitting on a bridge and dropping things in the river, and then you make waves or you make splashes or you affect like the stream. And then you can of course choose to not drop anything in. But then the only thing that doesn't work with the river metaphor is that sometimes the river stops. It doesn't in real life, of course, but in a concert sometimes like the stream is not there anymore. And then that's for me where the real improvising happens sometimes. When you really have to like deal with a problem. It can be like technical, or you play with, I mean you guys work together super well, but if you play with a duo partner that you don't really click with, that can also be like stop the river, or you're playing different rivers. I guess, you know, like, yeah, one person is playing a little stream and the other one is playing like a full-on blasting river.
Yeah, I agree with my partners, and it's also a question of the inner feeling, the inner sound. Most of the time I need to close my eyes to be able to improvise, to be able to I don't know, it's hard to describe with words, but it's a feeling, it's a way of, for me it's also a way of listening, to be like very dense in that moment, and also a question of the space, which is super important for me for improvise. There is different acoustic, different feeling, different way of having the sound cross far away or not, and it's yeah. But for my part, it's I understand why it's important for you to not to have a difference in between composition and improvisation. But for me, it's most of the time I'm more interested about having a kind of high or low determination, and I don't care if it's composition or improvisation. It's just a question of level, and it could be both actually. And in our music, it's a kind of things like that. I mean, like it's we improvise. We don't know how it will be, but we have some stuff that it's all the time the same direction, because we were working a lot on that. So it's not like if I have the river, it's not like everything. It's not like all the different streams, but it's more like going on that and staying on that. So it's already something about the composition.
Like my parents have been my whole family have been very supportive about me going into experimental music or whatever. But my mom asked me like many years ago, like, why don't you just play a bottle because I was doing even more of these like air sounds, you know, just like playing like shh, maybe even, or like super quiet, just like for 1 hour. And then for my mom, it was because she knew that I have a pretty good like tone. If I play a tone, have been, for me it's, tones and sounds are very similar. It's a kind of, so even though I'm less good at playing like super fast, but I'm really good at shaping tones. So for my mom, it was a distraction that she knew that I could play nice tones, but I chose to not do it. So then for her it would be easier to perceive the music if I played something else, because then you don't have this baggage of, and I think that's very, for string instruments too, I've played with string players where someone in the audience have tried to take the instrument from them because they're like, you're destroying 700 years of beautiful tradition. Whilst the trombone, I think it has a history, but not as long as the violin, for example. So it's like, but then for me it's just like when I play solo, it's changed a bit. Like now it's more noise based than it used to be, or it goes up and down. But for me it's like when I play with people, which is what I enjoy the most, then they kind of open portals to listening, like, so that's why I enjoy playing with electronics or drummers or a guitarist, or that they kind of open portals to my sound memory somehow, or my like everything I've listened to, which is very like from pop music to noisy stuff. It's just like depends what I hear from the setting, and when I play alone I don't usually hear melodies. But I can enjoy also, which is going maybe too far into it, but like I also enjoy how much importance tones get in the world of noise. So if you have an hour without any pitched tone, then like the one tone you choose can really feel like a whole chord, even if it's like a mono. So sometimes like playing a C can feel like a whole like major chord that opens up if there's been nothing before it. So I've been really fascinated by that also, like the kind of how a setting defines. Also with like really quiet music, then you start hearing, or like slow music, you start hearing nuances that normally is just overlooked because you're so quickly moving to something else.
Mm-hmm.